a gentle note before we dive into today's episode. Today's conversation goes into some real and honest places. We talk about personal struggles, life transitions, and some of these experiences or words used can be triggering to the people in my audience. If anything we cover today brings something up for you personally, please know you don't have to sit with that alone. I've added some support resources to the show notes for this episode. They're there for you whenever you need them. Take care of yourself while listening. Now let's get into it. Okay, so today's guest is someone I'm very excited about for a reason that's a little different than our other episodes. Because Courtney's story isn't just about leaving corporate world. She was already out of it, but already building something, building a life of freedom that most people would define as freedom. And she's been in the online space for over 2 decades. She built a food blog, then a lifestyle brand, then a full SaaS company and membership, grew it to 7 figures, scaled it, had thousands of members, and then lost all of it. And she was pregnant at the time. So, what makes Courtney's story so interesting for this show is that it answers a question that a lot of people are quietly terrified to ask. What if you build something and it doesn't work out the first time? 4 years on the other side, Courtney helps women create profitable businesses that actually support their lives and not consume them. So, Courtney, welcome to the Unclocked and Unbothered podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
It's amazing. I love how we connected. It was just through a thread that, I was outreaching to
Amazing.
people and saying, hey, like, you have an interesting story, please come on. And I love how social media does its magic and I get to connect with
Does
you.
its magic. And I'm like really big in belief of like manifestation and law of attraction. And I always will attract the right people to me and vice versa. So we were meant to find each other.
I love that. And we'll get into all of the manifestations and talking about that, but definitely vibrating at the same frequency to meet each other is just a beautiful connection. So, before we get
Yes.
into what happened, and I wanted to actually start at the peak because people need to understand what you had before they can understand what it meant to lose it. So, paint me a picture here. What was life like inside your business, your first business?
Yeah. So technically, I don't know if I would consider, I mean, I've done a lot of businesses, but that's like my first real one. Like
Hmm.
I've sold Pampered Chef. I've done all different kinds of things. But that was my first like real big business baby. Um, and at the time of like peak, let's see, we took 76 days of paid vacation. My husband worked from home with me full time for 6 years. We did whatever the hell we want, whenever the hell we wanted, and I made money every single night in my sleep for 4 years straight. I made 60,000 months, 40,000 months, 20,000 months. I bought my house. I bought a car. Everything I could have ever wanted. Like I never had to think about money. So life was really good. I loved what I did. I had 16 employees at one point. Um, it was a thriving business that I built with my own blood, sweat, and tears, literally.
Amazing. And how did you feel at that time? You were kind of saying that, you had 76 business days off and you got to shop at the most expensive stores. Like, who were you at that moment in your career?
I've had some unfortunate things happen to me in my life, and I always felt like I needed to prove myself. And I feel like I felt in that moment, which is funny because I feel so different now in a lot of senses. But in that moment, I felt like I'm the shit. I made it. And all the times that I was trying to prove to not just like everyone else, but really myself because of my own inner child and little Courtney, I just felt like yeah, I made it. I was there. I had arrived. Everything that I had ever wanted. I remember for years before, like writing on I had this giant whiteboard in our studio apartment where we started the business. I had written on there like 10K months. And then like I hit a 10K month and I never had less than a 10K month every month for 4 years. So yeah, I guess I was just like really on a high. Um, I guess the best way to describe it. And it was everything that I thought that I wanted in my life. Um, and I was just, yeah. But it's funny though, because I also was like had crippling anxiety and depression at the same time, right? Like there was the one side of it that was so amazing, but there was
Mhm.
another side of it and like just life that I hadn't figured out yet. Because I started that business, I was 26, 27, and I'm 35 now. So a lot has changed from then till now.
Definitely, yeah. So, there's something about building like something so successful that nobody warns you about is the bigger that it gets, the more your identity kind of gets tangled up in it. And it's not a weakness. That's just what happens when you pour yourself into something, right? And the problem is when the thing and the person kind of become undistinguishable and you kind of felt it in your body, you had um it was that mental health piece that kept you like questioning things or keeping yourself curious into what your actual identity is and what shifts that needed to be made. And you know you said something that on the intake form that stopped me, and you said that I trusted myself more than anyone else when it comes to the fear component of questions, right? And so where did that come from? What was it that that was always there, or did you have to build it? Did you have to build, like, trusting yourself?
Yeah. So one of the most unfortunate things that ever happened to me is to be super vulnerable. I was molested as a child, and I didn't have my family protect me in the way that they were supposed to. And I think internally, because I don't even know if I would say that it wasn't that I was believed. It was just, it wasn't taken seriously enough to like care about me in the way that, like, as a mom now, I would. And so I think that's what I mean by like trying to prove myself, because when your own family, who's supposed to be your people, and so I think I've spent my whole life like trying to prove myself that like I was worthy, that like I realized that the only person that was always going to have my back was me before I met my husband. And I used that instead of like being sad about it, because of course I've been sad about it, but mostly I used it to my advantage to make my life better.
Mhm. You took the trauma and actually alchemized from it. You took something that could have been used in a negative form when it comes to trusting only yourself and trying to like push everybody out. You actually took that and said, "Hey, at the end of the day, when it comes to building my businesses, when it comes to taking these leaps, I'm the one that has to have the confidence to do it. The support system that comes from it, as
Yep.
you met your husband and created your own family. Thank you for being so vulnerable with that story. And I wanted to kind of go deeper now into, the moment or the time where you lost your first business, or you lost kind of like that high from that peak, right? So I want to go to the hard part now because I think there's a version of your story that gets told where the loss is the paragraph, but the comeback is like the whole chapter. And I actually want to reverse that. Um,
Yeah.
can we actually talk about and actually go into what it felt like when the business maybe started to fall apart or maybe didn't feel like yours anymore?
Yeah. I can tell you the first red flag, it was on my birthday.
Mm,
Um, we were launching. So basically, the business was valued at $3 million, which is crazy. That's like that's so much money.
yeah.
And the whole plan was to like hire a web developer and build out a custom build. We hired this guy. All in, we paid about $100,000 to do this, and it was 100% out of our pocket. And um, I knew the first red flag was on my birthday. We were launching this new iteration of the web platform. And on launch day, just like everything was broken. Nothing was going right. So I was just like so shocked. And it's very embarrassing because in like most people who launch things, we were having a launch party. So like all our current members and like we are doing a Zoom party. And when you go to like show thousands of people like this thing that's supposed to be amazing and supposed to work and it's not working how it's supposed to. But that was like the really big one where I was like, ew, something is wrong. And
Mm,
that was kind of like the where the peak officially ended and it started to go downhill from.
I see. And it's almost like you had a gut feeling, like you knew like
Oh,
something was happening.
yeah. And I don't know if it was because it happened before, because literally
Mhm.
on launch day that happened with the last time, or if it was just a combination of all the things. And I'm a Pisces and I'm very big on like intuition, and I always have like learned to trust myself. Um, like, eh, yeah, just something was off. Literally one day, just like it all broke, and we went from making $10,000 a month to nothing the next day,
Oh,
and everything was canceled because it was so broken that there's nothing we could do, and without the code to give to someone else. And I had spent so much of my own money trying to like, because it was broken for quite a few months, because I think it fully like closed off 6 months after that initial red flag. Um, and yeah, it was pretty abrupt when it finally did shut down. And I didn't want to spend any more time, energy, or money chasing him to try to get it, to fix it, because I was just so distraught by what had happened. I mean, something that I worked really hard to build for 4 years just like literally stopped working one night.
yeah.
And there was nothing I could do about it without spending a bunch more money, chasing money with money, basically. And I didn't want to keep doing that for my own mind, body, and soul, really.
Yeah. So it really happened overnight. It took about 6 months for you to kind of like let go of it. And I want
Yeah,
to ask, like, what did losing it for that like 6 months, like losing the website, losing the code, how did it feel in those 6 months, day to day for yourself?
horrible. Um, just like really bad anxiety, really bad depression. That time to kind of try to save face while we were trying to figure out if we were going to be able to fix the code before it just fully crashed. We had to fire those 16 employees, which like that sucks because those were my
Mhm.
people that like were counting on me, that I loved, and some of them had worked with me for 8 years at that point. And then yeah, just like seeing our savings dwindle down to the point where we were not able to pay any of our bills anymore without like not it was like pay this bill or eat.
Wow.
And to go from like shopping at Whole Foods and buying whatever the hell I wanted to like how are we going to eat was like such a whiplash. And I had to um finally come to the conclusion with my husband that like bankruptcy was our really only option if we wanted to like save our house and not lose some of the things that we had worked really hard to get. And my husband had to go get a quote traditional job. He started driving for Amazon. But yeah, it was a really hard time. It was really hard on our relationship. A lot of people always ask like, how did you run a business with your person for so long? And honestly, like we get along really, really good. He's my best friend, and I'm super grateful. But that was probably the closest we've ever been to like breaking up. And I just told him, I was like, I'm not gonna let this, like, as hard as this is, like, I'm not gonna let this destroy the best thing that ever happened to me, which is our relationship.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but were you pregnant at the time or navigating
I actually wasn't.
fertility? Okay.
Yeah, we were trying.
Okay.
We tried for a year for our daughter. We started in 2022. So we decided to try probably a month before the website fully broke.
Hmm.
So, because I think it fully broke in about October, and I remember because we were in Vegas when we tried when we finally were like, let's try,
Hmm.
because we always knew we wanted kids. So I found out I was pregnant. So bankruptcy, it's not the same for everyone, but for us, it was about a year from the day that we decided that we were going to file for bankruptcy till we actually like went into bankruptcy. And so the day after our court hearing that like officially put us, stamped us into a bankruptcy, the day after I found out I was pregnant.
Wow. And
Yeah, that was crazy.
so you were pregnant through like majority of this, and what was it like losing your business while simultaneously, trying to conceive, then like being pregnant on the date of the bankruptcy? How did that feel? Like, what were these two things? Like, these two things were like something like a beautiful came out of it, but also you were in the middle of it. So, as a new mom, you're trying to grow this baby. How did that feel for you in your own body?
Yeah. So I I do think now, I don't know for sure, but like I think maybe the stress probably kept is what made it take so long to get pregnant. Again, I don't know for sure. I never went like to a fertility doctor or anything because they usually say after a year of not getting pregnant. So we were approaching that, but we hadn't got there yet. Honestly, as hard as it was, I was super grateful that the bankruptcy had like happened the day before I found out because I kind of just took it as a sign when I did find out that I was pregnant that I was just gonna like be extra chill Courtney and like our bills were like basically dwindled down to nothing because of the bankruptcy. So it was a blessing in a way. It was really hard, but I kind of feel like it was a blessing because as much as that business was really great, I still had 16 employees. I had responsibilities. I had, with that many customers, of course, there's like people who are upset who didn't understand the tech or whatever. And I kind of thought what the blessing um, was I didn't have to deal with any of that. I could just focus on my body. And because Joe had a job that he went out and he got, like we were financially, like we weren't good by any means. Like we're definitely were scraping by, but it wasn't like super we weren't in the red. We were like barely making even every month. Um, and yeah, I took it as a sign of like now I can just focus on this baby who needs me in a good, mindset. And that's what I did.
And that's exactly that. Like, as a spirit baby intuitive myself, which is basically somebody that helps women through conception in the energetic layer. So, you mentioned how, you would reach out to fertility clinics and they would tell you to wait a year, but nobody actually remembers that there's like the energetic connection before the physical. So, your spirit baby girl was probably
Mhm.
guiding you through that and that transition from becoming like that boss bitch era to somewhere where
Yeah.
she was asking you to soften and shift, and through a lot of loss came her birth. And that's something she was probably guiding you towards, and we will talk about this more and how she probably guided you towards your business now and how you wouldn't be able to kind of create that transition or that power within you unless these things have happened to you, right?
Hmm.
And having her there to kind of guide you, even though you were saying that her father was making ends meet while you got to kind of relax at home, is something that maybe it taught you both a lot in the relationship too. And
Oh, for sure.
I
Yeah,
was
I
wondering
would
if
agree.
also shows that it was also her timing too, and what she decided to, and when she decided to come down, and how that shifted you as a mother, um even in the early stages, right? So
Yeah.
okay, so let's talk a little bit about the rebuild now. So 4 years, you're here, coach, podcaster, mom. What did starting over actually look like and feel like?
So I think the biggest thing, I've been thinking about this a lot lately. But I'm happier now than I ever was then. And oh, it's gonna make me cry. Because I have my beautiful family. I love my kid beyond anything. I knew I'd love being a mom, but like I truly know like she picked me.
Mhm.
And I know that like she was meant to come into my life when she did. And I think the biggest thing that she taught me is boundaries and like enforcing those boundaries, especially as a business owner, because back in the day, I would drop everything. It was unhealthy to the point of like we were choosing everyone besides us. And I now realize, like, as a mom, my number one job is raising her. But before, I was more of a people pleaser in the sense of I would just do whatever I had to do whenever I had to do it. And now um, I don't just like say I have boundaries, I enforce them.
That's amazing. It shows that, like, having a child and having your baby come down has taught you to create more structure in what it means for you, so that you're able to kind of see the things that you enjoy and be able to do them successfully. And you said that, your most successful or your most enriching moment is being able to be with your family. And you can see that being a mother especially in this time in this world, is the most important thing. As a single mother, stay-at-home mother, people just put like a label on just being a single mother or just being a stay-at-home mom, but it's the most important job. And if you're able to, not saying that mothers that have to work and make ends meet for their children aren't as important. They're all important, but it's just specifically for those moms where they feel like they're stereotyped for being just a stay-at-home mom. I want you to know that it is the most successful part of a person's life, is being able to not only teach your children, but have them teach you back and being able to spend that time together. It's a very different shift than maybe what you and I grew up with, which is, you only learn from your parents and you do as your parents say. But you can see like mothers today or parents now are actually learning from their children. They're learning to take those boundaries. They're learning to create systems in place for them to actually both have a successful life and a happy life. So becoming a mother in the middle of all this, you've mentioned the boundaries, but what else kind of changed for creating this new business? What did you build from that? Your whole thing now is about helping women build businesses that support their life and not consume them. And that didn't just come from theory.
Dad owned his own business and my mom worked in corporate. And even though my mom had like more quote consistent income, and like benefits and all the things, my dad was always happier. And so I was just always, as a kid, watching everything. And then in 2008, it's funny because like I have a lot of parallels between like my parents' life and my life. So in 2008, when the housing market crashed, my dad lost everything because he was a contractor. And
Mhm.
so I saw him from like going in every day to like sitting on the couch, and that was around my senior year. Um, and then I saw like what the stress did to my mom, who now became like the breadwinner of like a family of six. And so, but even through all that, I still always knew like my dad was happier. And so I worked really hard to create this business for myself. And I never wanted someone else to raise my kids. And I, at the end of the day too, the world is in a crazy place right now. And I know the best two ways that I can help change the world: raise amazing kids that are good humans that help other people, that I instill those good values in them, like my parents instilled in me. And two, through my business, by putting more money in the hands of good women. Because when more women in power that are good women with good hearts and good morals have more money, that's how we make shifts. So those are kind of like my two lanes of like how I'm going to better the earth that we're on today.
That's amazing. That's basically your mission statement to the world, right?
Exactly. Yep.
From a really young age, you were actually saw the two different like lives or the life paths. Basically, you can choose the one where it's not comfortable. It's you work for yourself and you choose that freedom for yourself, and or you go into the corporate world, which is comfortable but it's not necessarily yours, and you already felt that shift of success. Like what success meant to you was that your dad was a lot happier, and going through and seeing his phase in 2008 where everything crashed, it almost kind of gave you a reflection of what could happen, but you still
Hmm.
decided to do it anyways. And that's the thing about starting over, is like nobody puts that on a motivational poster, is that you're not starting from zero. You're actually starting from experience. Even when you were
Yep.
young, you gain that experience, and those are two completely different lines. Is you had the experience versus like doing it with no experience. And
Hmm.
um like before we keep going, I did want to make sure that everybody knows where to find you, because what you've described is literally what you want to help women with now, right? Is building a life for themselves and putting the money in the right hands. Maybe be a little bit more clear about what you do now and how people can find you.
Yeah. So right now in this moment, I have my podcast. It's called The Boss Lady Social. I put out an episode every Tuesday, and it's just all the lessons that I've learned throughout being an entrepreneur for the last 13 years, uh, with everything from mindset stuff to like I did an episode last week about how to get like your next 500 subscribers on your email list. So very much the vibe of getting a voice note from one of your biz besties with like some really good information. And then I also am a fractional CMO, so and marketing strategist. So one of my best skill sets is I can look at someone's business and I can see the gaps of like where they're at and where they want to go and what's holding them back and what we need to do to fix it. So we do funnels, we do email, we do it's funny because I forever didn't know how to like describe myself. I would just call myself like a social media person, but it's so much more than that. Um, but yeah, so I do one-on-ones, long term, short term. So anybody who has a business who is looking for some guidance in their business from a seasoned business person who did it way before chat ever existed, I'm your girl.
Yeah, I want to be very clear. We're talking to a veteran here when it comes to all things marketing, social media. This is somebody that has experience and definitely something you can take away from this podcast or her podcast. And I'm going to definitely check out her episodes. So, seriously, if you're a woman building a business right now and you're working hard, but you're not necessarily seeing the results that you want to see, Courtney is your person. And I'll link all of her information in the show notes. Okay. So, well, as we're getting towards the end here, I just want to sit here for a minute because I think the most important question isn't about what you rebuilt, it's who you became while rebuilding it. So you became a mother and you became, someone different that had to hold a little bit of a different frequency than the person that created her first business. So who are you now that you couldn't have been before this all happened?
The thing I'm most proud of that through everything that I've gone through in my life, but especially like the last 4 years and all the stuff that happened with my business, is I didn't become bitter, I became better. I think a lot of people could be scared to hire someone again, to trust someone again, and I'm not. Because I also think that happened for a reason. And as weird as it sounds, I'm grateful because look at the world now. So my business, I don't actually think I said this, but I created a hashtag membership. So hashtags used to be the number one way that like you could grow your Instagram. Right now, SEO, hashtags are irrelevant. And I truly believe that like all this happened because my business didn't crash because hashtags are irrelevant. It crashed because, and I don't think that I would have been as good mentally if it would have been because hashtags were irrelevant. I would have felt way different. So I feel like the universe really had my back in that moment. And um, I'm really proud of myself because, yeah, I still am this kind, loving, giving, trusting person. I don't want to change who I am and who I was um, because, well, one, I want my kid to grow up to see that, right? Because the best way that I can lead is by example. Like you learn more from the bad stuff,
Mhm.
or not necessarily the bad stuff, but the experiences than when everything's going smooth. Success for me now, like, of course, I want the financial security that we had, and we'll get there. Like, I know it's going to happen. If I could build a multi-million dollar business once, I can do it again, and we're on the way. But for me, now like I just value so much more that like I have a healthy kid, I have a happy kid, I have a really safe space in my home, I have a beautiful relationship with my husband. I've worked really hard on my nervous system to overcome all the things that I've been through, and I still vibrate at a level of joy that a lot of people who've been through what I've been through might not. That's my meaning of success, and if I get to be home and do that at the same time, then I just feel like I'm winning already.
It's amazing. It really shows that the loss didn't disqualify you, it actually clarified you. And I wanted to kind of ask more about like having your child come into this world while you're also creating, your business, but you're also creating it because of her. You're creating that success around family. And is there other ways that your daughter kind of influences how you are building your business now?
Like most moms, when you're doing stuff, hopefully you're asking my kid, you know, could look back at what I'm doing. What would they think of me? Am I having integrity? Am I being honest? I always say like my number one marketing strategy is just giving a shit. I just really care about my people.
Mhm.
And I think, yeah, I'm a way more structured person. I've never really been really big on schedules. I do believe that I manifested a really amazing kid who sleeps a lot, so I'm really grateful for that. I'm I'm really strict with family time is number one, and any clients or business that I'm doing that doesn't support the way that I'm trying to be a mom, it's not a fit for me, and I'll immediately say no. Whereas in the past, like, money was money,
Hmm.
and even when money is tighter than it used to be, I still just trust and believe that I'm going to attract the right people who are going to support all of my goals, not just my business goals.
Yeah, so it's like creating something from a standpoint of being a mother. And it's interesting how before, when you used to move, it was just accepting everything. You were giving a lot of yourself because you didn't have necessarily an outlet to receive, right? It was
Yes.
now it's like, I want to receive that time back. I want to receive that freedom. And that's kind of like the duality. And like in spirituality, we call it like masculine and feminine flow. Everybody has masculine and feminine energy in themselves. And you can see it in yourself when it comes to the structure of your business, your boundaries. These are masculine things that you create for yourself so that you're able to receive money that feels good for you, time, freedom with your family. And that's your true definition of success. And that's a beautiful thing. So, you work with women building businesses now. And what's the thing you most want them to hear, especially the ones that are terrified of losing it all? And what do you actually know about that fear coming from the other side now?
Yeah. Honestly, like I said, as hard as it has been for me to like accept the saying of like everything's always working out for you, or like, things happen for a reason. And I think when you open yourself up to this or something better, the universe will always deliver you what's for your best and highest good. And now, like I said, seeing that like my business about hashtags closed down at no fault of my own, I can confidently move through business. Whereas, like, if I just made a bad choice and I invested all my money on something that, like, quote, failed, it feels so different energetically for me. I think I would be way harder on myself, and I think I would beat myself up. I think I would feel a lot more imposter syndrome about moving forward and helping women. Um, I've actually had many women tell me that they filed bankruptcy because of my story, and they were scared to do it, but like hearing me talk about it made them, it's not a bad thing, it's a tool, right? There's so many tools in this world that are um, seen as quote shameful, when really it's literally a tool. Like, you can file for bankruptcy every 7 years for a reason, because when you're trying to build a business, things aren't always going to go right, and just because the first one doesn't go right doesn't mean the second or the third one will, or just because the first one goes right for a really long time doesn't mean it always will. So I would say to people that are like afraid, it's more scary to not take the chance on yourself and see what can actually happen. Because if I did do the corporate world, I don't think that I would have been able to lay in bed next to my husband last night and tell him that I'm way happier now, um, than I would be if I was doing something completely different, where my attention and my focus and my time was spent away from my kids. Because truly, when I decided to become my own boss, it's because I always knew I wanted kids, and it's because I wanted to be around them as much as I possibly can. And so, yeah, I would say the fear is always going to be there, but you get better at working through it quicker. And when you can recognize that, like, the good stuff that always comes on the other side of it, which it's usually like feeling the fear and doing it anyways, and then getting the reward. And then the more you do that, the easier it is to do it over and over and over again. But I think it's more scary to never know what you could be and who you could be and what you could build than to be scared of doing it and staying stuck in a job that you hate, that doesn't bring you joy uh, forever. Like, I think it's better to take the risk.
I totally agree. I think the loss doesn't define you. When I look at you, I don't think of that like you are just a definition of what happened to you. It's what you're actually becoming and what you're building from it. And there's a lot of fears that will come up in no matter what you choose. There's a fear of losing out if you just kind of stay stuck. There's a fear of, actually doing it and living it. And that is, why I made this podcast, is to help people kind of show them what identities you've had to move through, what ego deaths you've had to move through, the shame that comes from choosing a different path than others, and the confidence and self trust that was always kind of instilled in you and you've learned to master so that you can live a life of success in a way that you define. I think that's what I want to reframe for a lot of people, and what they need is failure isn't the opposite of success. It's actually like the learning lesson or the curriculum that comes from it. So you
Mhm.
literally can't learn unless you're actually doing it.
Yeah. Failing
Same as
forward,
this
I call it.
Exactly. Same as this podcast is like you will learn the more like I want to become a better speaker. So I said, okay, let me throw myself into a podcast where I literally have to speak to people that I don't know. It's
Yeah.
taking a leap of faith and seeing what comes from it. Am I saying that this is going to be the best podcast ever? Let's hope so. But it's like the things that and the opportunities that come from it, like you won't have that opportunity if you don't give yourself your own opportunity to create. So, I want to thank you so much for coming and sharing your story today. There's so much to learn from your story and what you're creating and what you're still kind of in it and still building to this day. You can find Courtney in all the links below. And I want to thank you so much for coming on today, Courtney.
Thank you so much for having me. This was such a good conversation, and I look forward to connecting more with you and your audience.
That's amazing. Yes, thank you so much. Thank you guys so much for listening today and sticking to the end. What Courtney proved is something I want every person building something to hear. That loss doesn't disqualify you, it clarifies you. It strips away the parts of your identity that were never really yours. She lost a business, but she found herself. And she did that while growing a whole human being. If that's not proof you're more than what you've built, I don't know what is. If this one hit, share it with someone who's building something and terrified of losing it. They need to hear Courtney's story. And please leave a review whenever you're listening and follow the show. If you're a woman navigating a business transition, an identity shift, or the weight of rebuilding something, I work with people through exactly that. As a transformative healer, I hold space for the internal work that has to happen before the external can shift. Link to work with me and to find Courtney is in the show notes. Thank you guys so much and stay unclocked.